Hi there, my name's Emma Martel, and today I'll be presenting a product innovation analysis on the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. In today's presentation, we'll be going over a company and product overview, a product and innovation analysis, and finally, a recommendation and conclusion. To give a little overview of the company, Samsung is a South Korean multinational conglomerate and is a leading global company in consumer electronics. Its brand value is amongst the highest in the world, driven by its history of innovation and goal to inspire the world through technology. In 2016, Samsung launched the Galaxy Note 7, a sleek and powerful phone. Unfortunately, it turned out to be Samsung's worst nightmare. Shortly after its launch, the internet was flooded with videos showing the Galaxy Note 7 exploding. Its battery had a design flaw that caused the battery to catch fire while charging, and it even got to the point where airlines banned the phone on their flights and other tech companies began mocking Samsung. The company was then left with no other choice but to permanently discontinue the phone and issue a global recall. Now we'll be conducting a pestle analysis to explore the external factors that influence the innovation and launch of the Galaxy Note 7. Starting off with political factors, when Samsung developed the Note 7, globalization of electronic supply chains was at an all-time high. Free trade agreements like the Chorus and European Union to South Korean Free Trade Agreement made it easier for Samsung to sell and distribute products globally. Competition between China and the States was also increasing. And lastly, stable governance and predictable economic conditions meant that Samsung could safely invest in global marketing campaigns without risk of political disruption. Next, we have economic factors. So, the 2016 global smartphone market experienced a significant slowdown due to factors like market saturation in developed economies. Simply put, everybody who wanted a phone already had one, forcing manufacturers to rely solely on increasingly slow replacement cycles. And the slowdown was worsened by economic weakness in China. As the world's largest market tightened its belt, demand for high end and high margin devices dropped significantly. And finally, a systemic shift occurred with the rise of global circular economy, which means the growth of refurbishment and trade-in programs created a strong, affordable alternative to buying new, which directly competed with the primary sales pipeline. And countries like India, Indonesia, and sub Saharan Africa were seeing massive rollouts of faster 4G mobile broadband networks, which made smartphone ownership and mobile internet use suddenly viable and desirable for the people in those countries. The trend of digital integration into consumers' lifestyles was fueled by the rise of social media and mobile services. By 2016, phones were indispensable tools, and this maturity led to a problem for manufacturers, which was that consumers were not purchasing phones as often, leading to longer upgrade cycles. Since phones were now essential and apps ran smoothly across older models, the need to upgrade annually had vanished, and the device became a utility, not a status symbol that needed constant replacement. With established markets saturated and upgrades slowing, the projected major growth markets like India and sub Saharan Africa were predicted to heavily favor value driven Chinese Android vendors like Huawei over premium players like Apple and Samsung. Why, you may ask? Well, these new factors were dominated by first time smartphone buyers who prioritized affordability and features over premium branding, making the low cost, high spec models from Chinese manufacturers the clear winners for future model market share. Despite the overall market slowdown, the smartphone industry was evolving quickly on a technological level. The 2016 smartphone market was characterized by premium models and pushing boundaries, as companies desperately sought reasons to convince consumers to upgrade. The industry continued to build upon the legacy of the iPhone's tech ecosystem, which was known as being a disruptive in the industry, pioneering seamless integration of hardware, software, and services. However, with phone shipment percentages decreasing, manufacturers needed a new killer feature. And to spark interest and create new upgrade cycle, companies tried to blend virtual reality and augmented reality into devices. This focus on cutting-edge experimental technology was a direct cause of the market's need to find new avenues for growth. The mature smartphone market was not just a battleground for sales, it was also a war zone for patents and compliance. Apple filed a lawsuit against Samsung for design patent infringement in 2016. This shows that companies were willing to fight to the Supreme Court level to defend their creative territory and their profits. Simultaneously, the regulatory pressures intensified, and tech devices were subject to stricter requirements, such as global regulatory regimes requiring smartphones to meet strict safety, battery, and electronic standards. This concern was highlighted by the global recall of the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 due to the battery overheating, forcing governments and companies to immediately focus on the lithium ion battery safety and transport standards. Finally, as phones became central to identity through features like fingerprints and scanners, the legal landscape shifted. Legal frameworks around biometric data and privacy were becoming more strict. And lastly, on to the environmental factors. So, according to the LCA, the manufacturing of smartphones accounted for 80% of total global warming potential in a device's entire lifespan. This issue is derived by the fact that devices with short lifespans or non recyclable components were a rapidly growing problem. The quick upgrade cycle combined with glued shut proprietary designs created enormous amounts of electronic waste, directly clashing with the emerging global circular economy. And the rising public awareness meant that consumers and corporate investors were more aware of environmental issues and seeing the response as part of brand value. This awareness led to external and internal pressures, with consumers and lawmakers pushing for eco design features like modularity, repairability, and responsible sourcing. Thanks, Emma, for that amazing pestle analysis. Now let's jump into the SWOT analysis to evaluate Samsung's competitive position during the launch of the Galaxy Note 7. Starting with strengths, Samsung was the world's largest smartphone, television, semiconductor, and display manufacturer, providing massive economies of scale across over 80 countries. Samsung's heavy investment in research and development, roughly 13 billion USD at the time of the Galaxy Note 7's launch, helped them keep a competitive edge by patenting new discoveries. And diverse product and portfolio meant that Samsung's success was not entirely dependent on smartphones, but they balanced the risk across electronics, appliances, and components. And lastly, high margins for Samsung's overall business, which was roughly 15.21% at that time, provided substantial capital for research and development, marketing, and navigating market fluctuations. Moving on to weaknesses, although Samsung did have a diverse product portfolio, the large portion of profits still came from the smartphone division, which made Samsung very vulnerable to any slowdowns or competitive threats. Next, they had no control over the software ecosystem, which was Google's Android, meaning that Samsung relied on a competitor, which is Google, for their core operating system. Next, complex organizational structure, which leads to slow decision making and hinders the ability to react quickly to the fast moving tech market. And lastly, brand perception in Western countries wasn't necessarily premium. This means that Samsung struggled a little bit to compete directly with Apple's high margin and ultimately high status iPhone, um, relegating Samsung to a more utilitarian or value focused image. Next, moving into opportunities, we have a global shift towards large screen, high performance smartphones, which played directly into Samsung's strengths as the leading manufacturer of high quality AMOLED displays. Rapid smartphone adoption in India, Asia, and Africa offered massive potential for volume growth in new high growth markets. Ventures into wearable technology like smartwatches provided a significant opportunity to establish early leadership in emerging mobile ecosystems. And then 5G and near zero latency presented the next major technological leap, promising to create a new upgrade cycle and leverage Samsung's leadership in network and semiconductor development. Threats, we have intense competition with other Chinese and American brands, which meant Samsung was squeezed from both high end and low end segments. Market saturation in the US and Europe, which limited revenue growth in Samsung's most profitable mature markets. And IP and patent disputes posed a constant risk of heavy financial penalties.